Hello and welcome back to our study of Peninei Halacha, the teachings of Eliezer Malamed, Shlita. Here we are mid-Shavua, Yom Revi'i, and we continue our learning, but please continue davening for Chalo Yitzvagana Yisrael, Rufor Shalom El Chol Petzuei Yisrael, safe return of our hostages, and we dedicate our learning to Nishmat, Seren, Daniel Shimon ben Harav Dram V'Shel Yishamik Damo. The next chapter, Mashkaos Alkoholim. So we've been discussing wine. What about other alcoholic beverages? La'achar she'asu chachamim yayin, pas ubishule goyim. So after we have prohibitions from the sages on wine, bread, and cooking done by non-Jew, hosifa morim siag nusop b'fnei his balalus, shlishte mashke alkohol beveso shel goy bechanusa bebeis hakafeh shelo b'chol makom shebershuso. So the Gemara Avodah Zarah tells us on Daf Lamed Aleph on the Beis that Chazal, the Amoraim, they added a specific fence, another category. Again, we don't want to have mixture and leading to assimilation, so that a Jewish person should not drink an alcoholic beverage in the home, in the store, in the coffee shop, or anywhere that is in the domain of a non-Jew. B'chlal ha'isr kol ha'mashkos alkoholim kedugmi v'yiski, arak, vodka, liquor, beer, v'chol kiyotze b'zeh. So what's concluded in this? Any alcoholic beverage. So we have whiskey, which is whiskey, arak, if that's your taste, if you like anizet, vodka, liquor, beer, anything like this. Ha'isr gam kasher Yisrael shoses ha'mashke levado b'lo chavrusi ha'magoy, hova mashke meshachres ha'adam, va'alul ha'pilas ha'mechitza mechubedes shetzricha ligdoras Yisrael. And this prohibition applies even if the Jewish person is drinking alone without a non-Jewish partner. But since it frees up your inhibitions and it could tear down the barriers, so therefore we have to make this fence. This was not necessary during the period of the Tanaim. Again, as I mentioned, this was instituted by the Amoraim, which comes later in the time of the Gemara. But in the time of the Mishnah, the main beverage that people drank was wine. And then we already had several categories of prohibition, as we've been discussing the last number of days. So this is based on the Aruch HaShulchan, and he says that since in the period of the Amoraim and in Babylonia, when the prevalence of drinking alcoholic beverages became quite common, therefore they had to make these extra prohibitions. There's a difference between what we call pas akum or bishul akum versus drinking alcoholic beverages with a non-Jew. The bread or the cooked dish applies to that which was made and prepared by a non-Jew. And even if they did it in the Jewish home, in your kitchen, but if a non-Jew cooked it, you can't have it. However, when it comes to drinking, the prohibition is not on the beverage itself, but it's on the sitting and drinking with the non-Jew. So even if you brought your own beverage and you brought it to the home of a non-Jew, you shouldn't drink it in the home of a non-Jew, even if you're drinking alone. Mineged, on the other hand, if a non-Jew prepared a kosher beverage and drank it in your home, that would be permitted. So again, it's not about the beverage itself, but it's about the location and the situation. And there's no problem of bishul akum because making a beverage is mainly water. Kolomar, the thrust of this prohibition to drink alcoholic beverage with a non-Jew is to prevent us from mixing together and perhaps the barriers that will fall down during the alcoholic-induced drinking. But generally speaking, and as it goes, that for a great need, this is permitted. L'dugma. Let's say you have to have a drink because you've had a rough day. You need to alleviate a headache. You need to relax. So then, you're allowed to go, use the word bar. You can go to a non-Jewish bar, liknos kosita chas, to buy a drink Lishtos osav lo lachas, to just have a quick drink and leave. V'chein im izdam lebeis hagol litzorach acher v'tiyol hamashkeh, v'hu nitzorach lekach b'miyuchad mutar lishtos kosis achas, u'b'tnai shelo yesh v'yachal lishtos. Let's say you got invited to a non-Jew's home, and you have to be there for whatever reason, and let's say for manners, you don't want to be rude, and you want to have a drink, but he says as long as you're not sitting there and enjoying with him, but just having a quick drink, that would be okay. I feel and if it happened 2 times, you shouldn't make sure it doesn't happen a 3rd time. Because this is already not a temporary situation, it becomes perhaps more of a permanent situation. And we're worried about having more closeness than would be recommended from Chazal. Let's say you're traveling and you're being put up and you're staying in the home of a non-Jew, whether you're paying for it or whether it's complimentary. You can bring a beverage to drink with the non-Jew, because if you're staying there, it's as if it's your home as well. You shouldn't buy from the host and drink it there. And if, let's say, your host offers you a drink, you're a non-Jewish host, and you don't want to be rude and you don't want to cause any dissent, then you can have a little bit to drink. But only in a temporary setting, and only a drink we allowed you to do this to prevent Eva, to prevent dissent. However, when it comes to full-on cooking, bishul akam, or bread, cooked food that's cooked by a non-Jew, again, the prohibition is on the food there, so it doesn't matter where you are, what the circumstance is, you're not allowed to do this. So we've discussed alcoholic beverages, and the idea is that we don't want to create a social situation which would then tumble the barriers between us and perhaps lead to assimilation. But what about drinking coffee or tea? So here we have a machlokas. Yesh omrim shehol v'gam osam regil lishto b'tzavta v'shtiyasim mekares levavos also lishtosim osam bebeis guy. Revaz, Ari, Chachmas Adam, among others, they say that since this creates camaraderie and a social connection, then we shouldn't drink it in the home of a non-Jew. V'yesh omrim she'in iso lishtos osam bebeis guy. And some say, no, this only applies to alcoholic beverages and not to coffee and tea, which are non-alcoholic. Provided, of course, that there's no light behavior there, no lewd behavior, no behavior that is unbecoming. So, practically speaking, Malamed says that if it is to create camaraderie, then we try to be strict. But if it is just to be polite and to give honor, certainly to a host, then we could certainly be mekil. Again, we have a very, very long footnote here. It actually spans 2 pages here and discusses different types of beverages, but this is not something that we normally think of, but we just have to be mindful when drinking with non-Jewish people that the prohibition does exist, to prevent us from increasing this type of camaraderie, so we could lead chas v'shalom to assimilation, which is something Chazal were trying to prevent. But in any event, please continue davening for Chalei Tzvagana Yisrael, for Shlem L'chol Pitzua Yisrael, safe return of our hostages, dedicating our living Leilin Shua Sarah Daniel Shimon Rav Duran V'Sheli Shemek Damo. Thank you so much for listening today, and we will meet Hashem. See you here next time. Have a great day.